This shelf is about to get a major upgrade. Just wait until you see the finished product. Hey y'all, welcome back to Carbon Scoring, the best place for comics, history, and action figures. And today, we're gonna open up the new set of Hasbro Marvel Legends Across the Spider-Verse figures. And this is the first time that I'm gonna be opening these up. These are my first opinions. We're gonna take a look at them, compare them, look at some old figures, and you're just gonna get a sense of what I think of this new wave of figures. But hey man, this is Carbon Scoring. We're throwing in a little value while we're at it, because I've also got the new SH Figuarts Spider-Punk and the Mezco 112 Spider-Gwen. So we'll take a look at both of those as well. But again, let's start cracking open some figures and having some fun. There are actually two figures in this set that are from the first movie Into the Spider-Verse. The Peter Parker figure and this version of Miles. So let's look at those right off of the bat. Peter Parker from Into the Spider-Verse, the Peter Parker that was Miles's universe's Peter with the blonde hair voiced by Chris Pine, is a much, much needed addition to our sets. And I'm going to sit here and open him up, and I'm going to tell you a story while I'm doing it. Because of you guys, because of the support of this channel, I got to go to San Diego for my very first San Diego Comic-Con this past year. And one of the great things is right there at the Hasbro booth, you just get to talk and interact with the Hasbro team. They're there pretty much all day. You can find Ryan and Dan and Dwight, and they're great. They just will sit there and talk to you. And I got to spend a fair amount of time with those guys. I got to do an interview with them that's up for like channel members. But, you know, I really got much more of an experience getting to know them. So as I was there kind of at the end of my time, like late Saturday night, I was talking with Ryan and with Dan, and they asked me, what do you want to see more of? Like, what wave would you like to see next? And I straight up immediately answered Spider-Verse. I want more Spider-Verse figures. There's so many more that we need. And to those dudes' credit, they kept a straight poker face, because Ryan just went, huh, interesting. And Dan was like, okay. And then like 2 weeks later, they announced this wave. So they obviously had complete and total knowledge that this was coming, and they played it cool. So much props to those guys. I really appreciate their openness and their willingness and their ability to talk and listen to the fans and hear the things that we're saying. And I'll be really interested to see if some of the conversations that we had come true over the next couple of years. So that'll be a great thing. But here is Peter Parker. I really like this head sculpt. I think it really kind of captures the animated look really well. You know, this Peter didn't get a ton of screen time, but what he got was pretty significant, and it really has sort of set into motion everything we talk about, you know, canon events and the death of this Peter and how that impacted Miles's universe and everything that went on with that. Really, really huge. This feels like it's almost a redo of the Peter Parker that we got in the second wave. So in the first wave, the first time we got into the Spider-Verse figures, we got this really nice Peter B. Parker with his trench coat and his mismatched pants. The upper torso might be a reuse. I'm not exactly sure, but this is a great figure, very definitive for its style. The one that we got for Across the Spider-Verse felt a little chintzy. Like, this one kind of felt like a cop-out. It just was shoeless pants. Now, I think we'll see some better ones. It looked like SH Figuarts just premiered their version that's going to have his bathrobe and little baby May. But I think we can see that this is pretty much the same upper body. This one has kind of this swivel at the waist, whereas here you get the much better crunch. And they both have advantages, but I think being able to get this crunch is probably better. Very similar lower body. You did get web shooting fingers, and of course you got a masked version. If you just wanted like a plain Spider-Man figure, you just needed like a new good regular Spidey, this will absolutely work. But for my display, I'll be keeping this Peter Parker head going. So next up is Miles Morales, and some of you might be saying, why are we getting another Miles Morales? Don't we have this figure 5 times over? And I would argue, nah, we absolutely need this one, because while we have gotten some Miles figures, we have not gotten, until now, a definitive version of this Miles in the Marvel Legends form. And let me show you what I mean by that. With Into the Spider-Verse, Marvel Legends gave us this terrific Miles with his coat, his school coat, his shorts. And yeah, you can see the costume underneath, and it's really good. And I do like that head sculpt. I do think that they're both maybe a little bit different. I don't think that's a straight reuse. This one actually makes him look even younger. But this was great, but it wasn't a superhero costume to Miles. Now, they rectified that for Across the Spider-Verse, where we did get a full-on super suit Miles in his new outfit. A little bit leaner, a little bit taller, certainly befitting the age of the character. And he came with another unique head sculpt. But we still hadn't gotten Into the Spider-Verse. The only version of it we had gotten was this, which was just a repaint of like the kid Spider-Man body, the one used for Ultimate Spider-Man and some of the early Miles Morales figures. And yeah, I mean, it's got like the sprayed on logo, but these eyes, those are comic eyes. They do not match the movie at all. This was just kind of a quickie repaint, I think, to get something out to market. Whereas this is actually a dedicated version of the figure. You can see he has the web pattern from Spidey's traditional red and blue costume underneath. Even down here on the legs, you can see where the web pattern exists, and then he painted it black and brought out the graffiti style. I love the head sculpt. I think it's really spot on for Miles. He's on a great, tiny, smaller body. He's definitely shorter than he is in Across the Spider-Verse, so that fits with, you know, kind of a growing teenage boy. And he did come with an alternate head that thankfully has like the double ball pegs, so pops right on. But with the double ball pegs, you can get so much life out of this. That is something that they've been doing more of with their articulation schemes, and particularly for these spidery figures, it is big time. It makes a huge difference in the look of the figure. So while this one might at first glance feel like a retread, it is a super necessary addition to our collections. Loving the combination of comics, history, and action figures? Then give the video a like. And we're getting close to a major milestone, but we can't do it without your help. So subscribe to Carbon Scoring, because we're bringing you quality content every week. Now we're moving into Across the Spider-Verse with Miguel O'Hara's Spider-Man 2099. Now, I really felt like Miguel is one of the more intriguing characters in all of Across the Spider-Verse. I mean, he kind of was set up to be the heavy, not necessarily the bad guy, but the dude who was sort of, you know, the voice of reason, the one who was committed to the plan no matter what the cost. And yeah, I guess that does kind of make him the bad guy of the film, but I don't know if that's really fully an accurate characterization. Now, obviously, the big difference with this figure is the unmasked head, and boy, it really does hit those chiseled cheekbones and that flowing back hair that we saw on screen. Truthfully, this one is not very different from the one that was released. I am certain, and you guys know how terrible I am at this, but I am certain these are the exact same bodies. I even was like looking like super up close at the web, the spider Day of the Dead symbol on here, and I really think everything is exactly the same. Huge difference in the back. The first one, the one that came out with the film, does have the cape, and I kind of love the cape. I love the way that it sort of gradiates down to clear. I think that's actually a really cool look, but I appreciate having him without it because he's definitely more posable without the cape. One of the other small changes that I could see was on the, you know, time machine universe swapping doohickey. The first one was bigger than the second one, and I imagine that this one is probably more screen accurate since these came out much later. Now, you do get a masked head with this, and it's exactly the same. It is completely the same as the previous one. He's maybe a little bit darker shade of blue, which makes the red pop, but it's not a big enough difference to really matter. So for me, if you have the first one and you don't really care about the Miguel head sculpt, I do. I really like the Miguel head sculpt, but if you've got the first one and you don't care about the Miguel head sculpt, you don't need to pick this figure up. I mean, they are essentially exactly the same. But if you're looking to fully round out your team, this is another one that is just a daggum good figure. Gwendy, like Miguel, is pretty much another straight repaint. This is the exact same body, the exact same head sculpt that we saw with our first figure, which let's pull that one out so we can look at it, because I I really loved this Across the Spider-Verse Gwen. I thought it's on a perfect frame, great body, super articulation. I love how cute this head sculpt is, and all of that is replicated here. Now, if you look closely, there are definitely differences. You can see the difference in the costume right at the chest plate. The arms, not only are they a different color, but they go up higher on the older figure's arms than they do on the newer one. The newer one, of course, has her time machine, which you should be able to swap out. You could just pop the hand off, and if you prefer this one, you could put the time machine onto the other figure. The shoes are pretty much the same. She's got the Chuck Taylors that she wore. Obviously, one of the biggest changes is with the hair color, and this is really nicely done. I kind of love the crazy hair color here, the different colors, but I was also really a big fan of the way that they faded this in and out. Truthfully, I still really like this figure, but this one has enough bonus features that I think it is worth picking up. Now, even though the head sculpts are the same, the newer face print technology kind of makes these eyes a little bit more realistic than these, which maybe are a little touch more animated, but her cheeks and her lips are a little bit rosier and maybe a little bit more pleasant than this one. This one looks a little bit tougher. Now, let me pop the head on because I do like the masked head sculpt that came with this one. Okay, we're going to see more of this purple hue as we go through some of these other figures, but you can kind of pick up on how there's just sort of that background purple with this, and it's really brought out with the hooded mask with all the purple there. So whereas our previous figure was definitely more kind of in the red, pink and red territory, this one is clearly a more purple variant. And it's been a few months since the last time I watched the movie, so I'm not exactly sure how screen accurate that is, but I know that it looks really cool. But the thing that sold this figure for me far and away was the Lila accessory. Yes, we get Miguel's AI 3D companion. And as somebody who was reading the Spider-Man 2099 comics all the way back when they first premiered, and Lila has been a part of that the whole time, this is such a cool addition. She's not articulated. She's really tiny. I mean, she's really, really tiny. She's bigger than something that would go on your wrist, but you know, the heart-shaped glasses, the hair, just all of the attitude that they were able to get into this tiny little figure, absolutely worth the price of admission. I'm sold. I'm buying this Gwen just for Lila. But Mezco wasn't going to let Hasbro have all the fun. Let's take a look and see what their newest version from their 112 collective looks like. So here's the tray with all of Gwen's parts, and there's some unique things in here. We'll look at the figure in detail just in a minute. I like this Gwen head sculpt with the black hairband throwing back to that John Romita look of the 1960s. Plus we get two alternate heads, one with kind of the asymmetrical eyes, and then I really like this. I don't think that we've seen this for a Gwen figure, the half mask up, and with her lips and kind of that feminine look, really, really nice. Of course, she also has the no mask, like the empty mask, cell phone, notebook, backpack, all the extra hands, but I really noticed these hands with the built-in web shooters, and you can see they've got like a really nice spaghetti web coming off of those. That looks pretty cool. And even though Mezco isn't doing this as a specific Spider-Verse figure, there's like something you can slap on her wrist that certainly fits with the time travel aspect or the cross-dimensional transponder type of thing. Let's look at her other set of accessories and see what else comes with her. Mezco always makes some of the best stands in the business. I love how they have the character symbol, and this arching stand actually does really well. But this one has a little bit of an extra piece that attaches on, and the reason why is because they have a spider sense effect that you can have floating back above Gwendy's head. So that is actually pretty neat. I've got some custom spider sense things that I've gotten from Can of Beams, but I like it when it gets included with it. Plus, I think this is meant to be a dimensional portal. So you get enough that you can really set her up in some pretty cool looking poses with all of these accessories. As for the figure itself, it has all of the pluses and minuses that we've come to expect from these high-end Mezco 112 figures. So it has great articulation that really stays in place incredibly nicely. These joints are smooth, but they're also tight, so you can get her into some great poses. And all of the joints are hidden by the kind of plasticky uniform that she has. So this isn't painted. There's actually a lot of soft up here that I think allows her to get into more crunchy sort of poses. So I don't think that this is all plastic. I think it's on like a softer body up top. New thing that I haven't noticed in any of their previous releases, but it doesn't hinder the shoulder at all. She has a little bit more of a comic look with the webs kind of on the underside of her arms rather than coming down across her forearms like in the movie. The hood is really nice. You can see it's also that rubbery kind of cloth, and it's got an underwire, so you can kind of pull it back up and shape it the way that you want to. And of course, she's got great range of motion of her head. But the problem with these is there is always going to be some degree of limitation of movement, and you're going to get some crinkling of this costume. So if you leave it in a really Spider-Verse-y type of pose for a prolonged period of time, you always worry that this rubbery plastic material is going to crack and kind of ruin over time. Plus, I did switch out and put the web shooting hand on her, but good grief. This little peg is so small. I had to be incredibly careful putting it on there, and I don't really have a lot of desire to go changing those things out because they're guaranteed, if you're too rough with them, to break because they're just so tiny. So it's a neat figure. It's got a lot of accessories, but I don't think that it really does anything for my collection that the Hasbros don't do, and they're like a quarter of the price of this. So, I mean, I like it. I like the accessories, but I don't think it's going to replace any of the Gwens that I have down in my Spider-Verse display. And one more character that we've seen before, the breakout star of Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, Hobie Brown Spider-Punk. So just like I think Peter Porker, the Spectacular Spider-Ham, was kind of the thing that really resonated with viewers from Into the Spider-Verse, I really think Hobie, particularly the unbelievable job that the team did animating him and his whole attitude, really struck a chord. Ha! Pun not intended. Struck a chord with viewers in Across the Spider-Verse. And here we have him kind of in his sort of morphing state. He's really kind of, this is like the Jimi Hendrix Purple Rain version of Spider-Punk. It's meant, I guess, to evoke kind of his constant flickering and changing on screen. Cool enough, but the big thing is the head sculpt. Yes, we finally get this unbelievable unmasked Hobie head sculpt. And just like Miles said, you're actually cooler with your mask off. And it is definitely the case right here. Now, Hasbro could have given us this, and that would have been great. But I really do believe that they listened to the fans. And they did something packed in with this figure that they just didn't have to do. But by giving us this head sculpt also packed in, you're able to take your original Spider-Punk figure, put this head on it, and have a completely new look. So it just, I saw it. I saw when they released it that it came with the second head sculpt, and I'm like, that's a cool thing. That actually is genuinely, thinking of the fans, the people who collect these, who collect them all, and this head really kind of makes up for there not being one in that very first one. Again, they were working on that before they maybe even knew what the head looked like for the film, but definitely choice, definitely something that just kind of shows that they're listening. But let's compare this guy to the new SH Figuarts Spider-Punk. So SH Figuarts is a subsidiary of Bandai. Bandai is actually one of the largest toy makers on the planet. I think it goes Lego, Bandai, Hasbro. And they have been releasing slowly figures from both Into and now Across the Spider-Verse. And we saw some figures on display at San Diego Comic-Con that were upcoming. There's a Peter Parker, the India Peter Parker. There's actually a set for Gwen and Miles where they're hanging upside down. And then just before I filmed this video, they released images of their Peter B. Parker in his robe with Baby May. So we're getting a much more complete set of figures from Figuarts for this movie. So let's crack this thing open and see how it looks. So quick look at in the package. Of course, you have the main figure. There are 6 sets of alternate hands, alternate head sculpt, and his guitar, as well as his wrist transponder. So now let's crack him out of his plastic cage and see what we've got. Yeah, okay, yeah, this is super nice. So, I mean, this thing costs, when you import it, it probably costs close to $100. This one actually may have been a little bit more than $100. So you're talking about something that's 4 times as expensive as the Marvel Legends figure, which really makes it out of the price range for many collectors, and there is nothing wrong with that. It's okay if you don't have every figure, and it's okay, if there's figures that, some people have and you don't have. It's not about that. But when I look at this, I'm trying to figure out, where do you get your money's worth? And it's a little bit in the articulation, but Marvel Legends articulation is phenomenal. Now, this articulation is equally as good, maybe a little, just a tiny, imperceptible bit better in a couple of areas, particularly maybe the head, the articulation of the head. But it's the paint apps, guys. Let's start by looking at the jeans that have got all of the graffiti sketched, detailed perfectly on them, even to the point that, like, this knee has sort of the pattern there, but this one has like rivets on it. Like the asymmetry of that, the boots, the laces are done. The amount of paint work on this guitar is unbelievable. I went ahead and switched out his guitar playing hands to put that on him. Up here, of course, the buttons, the Spider-Man costume, the rips, the back, where every single rivet is individually painted in, like on his punk rock choker. This is a level of paint application you're not going to see on a $25 mass market toy, because, there's probably more than $25 of paint wash that was put into this figure. So if there's an area where this thing is clearly superior, that has to be it. So let's actually pull up our Hasbro Marvel Legend and take a look at a couple of things and just kind of see how they compare. So when you hold them up side by side, I don't know that you can really tell any significant difference in these two head sculpts. This one is actually the SH Figuarts. It's a little bit smaller, just a tiny bit smaller. This one is the Hasbro Marvel Legend. They are so similar that I don't think there's a great amount of difference between the two of these. As for the figures themselves, when you have them in hand and you're looking at them up close and personal, yeah, you're going to be able to see that there's more detail in the paint apps on the SH Figuarts. But on a shelf, they're going to look pretty much exactly the same. And honestly, when I get these two head sculpts on here, I think I like the Hasbro one better. Now, I really love that spiky masked portrait that SH Figuarts had, but, these are very, very similar. This one has more paint, maybe a little bit better articulation. This one is the clear winner when it comes to cost. So whatever your preference is, I say go for it, because Spider-Punk is just the breakout star, and he is going to play a huge role in the next movie. I am certain of it. Okay, now we're getting to the stuff that I was the most excited about. Brand new characters in the line with Spider-Man India and Miles Morales as the Prowler. When I was talking with Ryan and Dan, these were the first two that came out of my lips as figures that we needed, and here they are. From the moment I left the theater on premiere night, this figure has been number one on my Spider-Verse want list. And oh man, it does not disappoint. Does not disappoint. There are so many great details, and I love everything about the design of this suit. I love the way that his hair flows out of the top of the open mask. I love the stylish look of the eyes, how, it looks so much like the art that I saw when I visited and traveled to India. I like the gold accents that he has both at his ankles and at his wrists. And of course, he's got his bare feet. He's got his toes exposed here. And this take on the traditional garb looks so terrific. And look at this articulation, what they've done with the way that you can get this ball here at the waist and then this diaphragm cut. This is one of the better Spider-Man body designs that I think we've seen. I would love to see some more of this. Obviously, the belt, the drop down really kind of helps to hide that articulation. But dude, that's what making action figures is all about, is using the details of the costume to really hide the articulation so that you get that much more out of it. And oh man, this one's great. I'm taking this to work. He's going to end up in my Spider-Verse display, really right there near the front, but I got to play with this guy a little bit more. I really love everything about the way this thing feels in my hand. Of course, you got your classic, you got pinless, double jointed knees, pinless double elbows, everything that you've now come to expect from modern Marvel Legends. But he's got some pretty sweet accessories as well. I'm not going to try to name what this yo-yo type weapon is. I'm certain that I would say something that was, unintentionally culturally inappropriate if I tried. But it's really cool and it's really unique and it feels so in place for the character. And I can see me actually having this in his hands in the display because I just think it works so incredibly well. And look at how, it bends and you can get it, into some great poses, even just sitting here fiddling with it for the very first time. He also comes with a brilliant unmasked head sculpt with that same great hair, really good skin tone for this character, and of course the face print technology just looks great. So man, this is one that I have been waiting on, and it did not disappoint. The movie's been out for 2 years. I think we can not have to worry about spoilers at this point. I was really loving the end of the movie universal switcheroo with Miles coming out as the evil Prowler from the universe that our Miles ended up in. And what a great design for this figure. This mask is so cool because it actually it has like Spider-Man feel, but it also has Prowler feel to it. So they managed to kind of find the middle ground there. He comes with this backpack as an accessory. They don't come out. They just kind of stay in there. I love his braids, how tight those rows are. And look, it even incorporates some of the Spider-Man mask going across the top of his head. He's got those gloves that his uncle used in sort of the first movie. And there's just almost the same level of detail that you got with Spider-Punk on this one with all the different things. Now, I don't know this for sure, but I think when you're making a wave of figures, there's a budget, right? And so if you save a little bit of money on that Peter Parker figure that has a lot of reuse, or the Miguel O'Hara or the Spider-Gwen figure that are able to, kind of use pre-existing tooling and you're just doing different paint, it gives you more money to spend on newer figures like this Prowler and like the Spider-Man India. And I think this is money well spent because this is obviously all new tooling everywhere. Every single piece of this thing is brand new and it's just terrific. I actually don't have the original Prowler down in my Spider-Verse display because he was going to look out of place. But now, oh yeah, baby, these two are definitely going down there together and they're going to look so tough. Look at how good these two figures look together. I mean, that's absolutely incredible. Plus, we did get the maskless Miles portrait, and he has kind of that disaffected look that this Miles had. He's got the hair with the tight pattern just the brilliance of that they utilize his hair to give that Spider-Man look. Just so brilliant. I love everything about Spider-Verse, and I cannot wait to get these guys down in the collection. I can't wait for the next movie, but still going to be a while for the next movie. So why don't we head back downstairs to the Secret Lounge and see how these new figures are going to fit into our Spider-Verse display. We are now down in the Secret Lounge, and unfortunately you can see that we're still dealing with some of the flood damage from Hurricane Helene, and we did have some water damage to some of the structures, some of the bases, and of course we had to kind of clean out some of these lower shelves. So there's some stuff that's still a work in progress, but that's okay because I was ready to kind of redo these shelves anyway, and it gives us an opportunity to do just that, including, here's a quick sneak peek at a new team shelf with the 1970s Defenders, the 1980s Alpha Flight, and the 1990s New Warriors. So there's going to be some cool stuff down here, but one shelf that we just redid was our Spider-Verse shelf. And I was actually really happy with how this one turned out, but I did leave some space because I knew that this was a shelf that was going to continue to grow. I didn't know at the time the specifics of who was going to be coming, but I knew that we're going to have some room. And so the front of this display with Peter B. Gwen, Miles, Spider-Ham, you've got Miguel, you've got Ben Reilly. The idea was that this was kind of the allies that were sort of jumping out of us at the end of Across the Spider-Verse. Now, I've got Spider-Man Noir right here on the side. I'm thinking about adding him back here over the top and bringing Spider-Man India down here in front. So let's go ahead and start working on that and seeing how we can enhance this display. Now, I am liking this very much. This is much more what I had in mind. Way more depth to the center of this display. We're getting a lot more action with these characters in different flying poses. You can see them all kind of coming at you. There's 3 different layers. We've got most of the main characters. I actually raised up the Leopardon back there. I couldn't decide if I wanted to use the new SH Figuarts Spider-Punk, but once I got him up in that flying pose, oh, it just had to happen. I kept the one down here because I love this custom head sculpt so much, but just look at how dynamic this grouping now is with everybody coming at you. So much better. Really, really like. This is so much it's thicker. It just really works a lot better. I love the new additions, and it let me actually create a little display for our Prowlers. So now our bad guys are also included in this display. Yeah, I like this. There's still room to add more, but when you look at how dynamic these flight stands are, and these are from Iron Wing Collectibles. I love it because you can just get them on the flight stand and then utilize these bases down here and just plug them in. And you can see how many different ones. I think I have 8. 8 of the 9 spots on this base are taking up, and it allows for every single one of these spider characters to be flying through the air. Oh, that just looks so good. So guys, let me know who you think I should add in. I really appreciate the feedback last time because you reminded me that I needed to add in Lego Spider-Man, and so he is here because of your suggestions. So who else should go in this display? Who else would you include in your Spider-Verse display? And as always, for the best in comics history and action figures, subscribe to Carbon Scoring.